Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. So today I am back to look over my October 2022 book haul, but particularly looking at, did I actually end up reading any of those books that I bought? I've done a few of these videos so far this year, inspired by Greg over at Supposedly Fun, revisiting my old book hauls and basically trying to keep myself accountable to actually reading the books that I buy. We've got 10 books to look through today, so without much further ado, let's just get straight into this old book haul. The first book that I picked up in October 2022 was Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. I was really excited about this because I had loved The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This was more of a spooky, Halloweeny romance book, obviously riffing on Frankenstein, who is Frankenstein's sister and creates for herself the perfect man because she's 26, 27, living in the 19th century and still single. She's doing this as like a bonding activity with her brother, and her creation ends up coming alive first. And she's kind of reckoning with the fact that creating life does not necessarily mean that you own it. And I was really excited for this one. I'd heard really great things, and unfortunately, if you've watched my Undead Boyfriends video where I talk about this book, you'll know that I actually didn't end up loving this. I just found this main character so incredibly annoying and just very entitled, and she doesn't seem to learn anything through the course of the book. Everybody's telling her what an amazing person she is while she's also doing like the most horrible, despicable things. I think this was probably my least favourite book that I read in 2022, unfortunately, but it was one that I read, so success for this book haul so far. The next book that I bought, I actually did not buy, I received it from a friend, and it was Taste by Stanley Tucci. This was one that actually wasn't added to my TBR. This was actually gifted to me by one of my friends. She already owned the hardback, but she ended up going to a launch event for the paperback, was given the paperback for free as part of her entry, and so she just passed it on to me, and I in turn passed it on to my mum and dad because they were really keen to read this one. It's one I'm definitely going to have a look at, but more so for the recipes, I think. So this one was not added to my TBR, though it does look very good, and I do love some Stanley Tucci. The next book was historical fiction. It was The Dance Tree by Kiran Millwood Hargrave. Historical fiction focusing on the dancing plague of, I think, 1516? Do correct me if I'm wrong about that year, which was a phenomenon that I had learnt about recently and was really, really interested in seeing a fictionalised retelling of it. I actually read about 50 pages of this back in June of this year and just wasn't really feeling it. I wasn't really getting into it. I know a lot of people have recently been loving this because the paperback just came out, but unfortunately I just couldn't get on board with the writing style, didn't find myself really interested in these characters, so unfortunately I did DNF this one. Another book that I ended up DNFing, but actually have a bit of a tale to tell with this one, is The Haunting Season. This is a collection of 8 different ghostly stories for Halloween, written by different prominent British and Irish historical fiction writers. So I started reading this in October of 2022 and just didn't really get into it, and so I ended up DNFing it. I ended up passing it on to a friend who was interested in it. Honestly, looking back on this, I'm going to partially blame the fact that I did get quite ill during October of 2022. I think I just wasn't in the headspace for kind of spooky historical fiction, so this just wasn't doing anything for me. I wasn't really absorbing any of the stories. However, recently, and by recently I mean like this week, I actually ended up rebuying The Haunting Season because I feel like I am just in the mood for it. I'm on the second story so far and I'm actually really, really enjoying it. I think I'm just in the headspace for this now, and I don't really mind having to buy it again. When the inspiration strikes, you just have to go with it. The 5th book that I picked up in October of 2022 was How to Be a Tuda by Ruth Goodman. This was one that I picked up in a charity shop, and it is Ruth Goodman basically doing like the day in the life, what it is like to live as a Tudor peasant, complete with her own experiments, and she actually does engage in some of these practices and like kind of tells you about her experiences. And this was one that I did read. I read it for Non-Fiction November last year, so that is another one to tick off. A book that I picked up this month is The Dead Romantics by Poston. Once again, this was included in my Undead Boyfriends romance books video. I think that was the first like dedicated romance books video that I ever did. This one was a little bit more successful than Angelica Frankenstein. I think this was kind of a 3-star, so not a fantastic romance book for me, especially considering in 2022 I had hit the heights of When a Scot Ties the Knot. But you know, definitely a lot better. I didn't find myself absolutely despising the main character or her love interest, so that's definitely a plus. The next book that I picked up is What Is History Now, which is edited by Susannah Lipscomb and Helen Carr. You'll have seen that I have read this book. I did a whole review video about it. This is basically a follow-on from E.H. Carr's What is History and is non-fiction essays looking at historiography in the 21st century, particularly looking at the importance of more diverse histories, although different historical debates are also considered in this book, such as portraying historical events on film and TV, gendered histories, museums, statues, who it is that we choose to commemorate. I thought it was a really, really fantastic book and one that I definitely recommend for any history fans. The 8th book in my haul was An English Christmas, edited by Julius Norwich, which is just a little anthology of different Christmas stories, obviously set in England. This being a Christmas book was not technically added to my TBR because I do just like to dip in and out of my Christmas books. I had a little read of some of these stories in Christmas 2022, but I didn't read it cover to cover, one that I'm definitely going to go back to this year. The penultimate book in this haul was Unfortunate Ends on Murder and Misadventure in Medieval England by Soren. This was just a diddy little thing that I kind of purchased on a whim. Non-fiction history of, I think it's 10 different cases of murder perpetrated in the medieval period and kind of what it says about life in medieval England. This is one that I actually read in August of 2023. I don't know why it took me quite so long to read, considering it is so short. I think it is around about 100 pages, but definitely a very fun history. If you are a fan of more morbid histories, definitely one that I would recommend. And then the final book that I picked up in October of 2022 is What Writers Read, edited by Pandora Sykes. This is a number of different authors talking about influential books and the effects that they have had on their reading and writing. I once again did a whole video about this book during Non-Fiction November of last year. This was one that I really enjoyed. It's a really great book about books, with the added element of it being authors talking about the books that have kind of made them. Some that I definitely connected to more than others, but overall a really good read and one I definitely recommend for your Non-Fiction November reading. So in the end we had 6 books out of the 10 that I have read, so are no longer on my TBR. 2 books that I DNF'd, though one of them I have since picked up again and I'm currently reading, and then 2 books that were not initially added to my TBR anyway. So I would say a fairly successful October book haul. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about today and your thoughts about them. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.